Our next talk. So, our first speaker of today has been involved in internal martial arts, Qigong meditation, and Taiji for over 25 years now. Beginning his study of Taiji in California, returning home to New Hampshire, he trained extensively under Dr. Yang of YMAA. I'm sure some people in this room have heard of YMAA or taken their videos or classes or what have you. Learned under Dr. Yang for years before eventually learning about the Xuan Ju Daoist Center near his home in New Hampshire. He's now a certified Daoist Gate instructor, and he continues to train with Master Zhou in Wudang Taiji, Gongfu, and weaponry up until now. From training together, something that I really remember about Josh is his humility. He's somebody that knows a lot, has a very strong foundation that's apparent physically. I remember thinking when we trained together, I'm like, I can't really pick out something that's really weak in his fundamentals, which is something that is kind of rare. You know, usually somebody is good at one thing, but they're kind of missing something. And when you talk to him, it really becomes apparent that he knows a ton. Had practiced really deeply and thoroughly to the point where some of these deeper internal skills are really alive and embodied within him. However, he's not somebody who needs to tell you about all that, so you could miss it if you didn't, ask a question or didn't train right beside him. And that's one way right there of embodying some of the Taoist values that this path really offers us, is to have that value of humility, simplicity, and not putting everything in your face. So it's my pleasure to give the floor to Josh Miller, who will demonstrate some Wudang Taiji. Josh, go for it. Josh, you might have to click the, unmute.
Sorry about that. I think I'd done this before. Thank you, Sam, for your very nice intro. I thought I had all this set up where I had a nice TV screen where I could see everybody here, but it doesn't want to connect, so I'll just skip past that. Everybody hear me okay? See me okay? All right. So, yeah, like Sam said, I've been doing this for a little while. Definitely, as everything progresses, you learn more and more, keeping your mind open to such things. And the more you open your mind, the more you learn. And we are declared masters. There's always more to learn. So, yeah, in modern times with social media and internet, we are definitely more aware of, world problems. And I'm not really, against, social media and the internet. It's all useful tools. I believe that, they're all parts of our, social and world evolution of our species, to be honest. But it is something that makes us, very distracted. It reduces our amount of patience. And there's a lot of different practices that people will use to overcome this. So you'll see, of course, yoga and different types of meditation. And whatever works for you is great. Obviously, Tai Chi, I believe, is something quite unique in different ways. Which I'll be talking more about as far as having a unique ability to be able to provide, this ability to remain calm and relaxed and be who we want to be and who we are in modern times. So how do we do things well? Well, we keep our mind on what we are doing. So whether you're talking about music or art or sports, obviously those things take a lot of work in order to achieve, high levels. But we drive our car every day. Why are we not all professional race car drivers? Well, After you learn how to drive, you stop thinking about the steering wheel and the brake and the gas pedal and the clutch and all that stuff, if anybody remembers what a clutch is. And, you know, it gives us time to think and we are distracted and all that stuff. But, you know, anybody, you know, a race car driver learns how to focus, how to feel. I think that anybody who gains an affinity to a skill at that level isn't really thinking about what it is they are doing as far as the specifics. Like I said, brake pedal, gas pedal, they are focused on what it is that they are doing and feeling. Feeling it. Obviously, you know, the musician feels the music they are playing. To be honest, you know, a race car driver, keep going back to that, you can feel the road through the tires. You know when you're going to start losing control and such things. So yeah, to be able to focus and clear the mind and focus on exactly what it is, the task that you are doing. You know, meditation is difficult because of the fact that we are supposed to clear our minds. Well, like I said, in today's day and age, it's extremely difficult to just sit down and say, okay, I'm going to think about it, obviously. So Tai Chi helps us do this in a way that is sequential. So when we first started learning Tai Chi, we're focused on, you know, remembering what move comes next and, you know, finding where our hands are supposed to be and how we're supposed to step. Well, after that, once you learn all of the movements and you know what comes next, then you start thinking about, okay, I need to choreograph my breathing, the inhale and the exhale, the beginning of a movement and the end of it. And then you start going into a lot of the deeper aspects as far as, you know, fine tuning your movements to be exactly the way they're supposed to be able to maintain relaxation while you're carrying out the movements and not being too tense in one area. And believe me, even I find, you know, new ways of relaxation every time I do one. So through diligent practice, eventually we are able to empty our minds. That's why often Tai Chi is called movement meditation by some, because by the time we learn the movements, fine tune all of these things, all of a sudden our minds are clear already. And so the Tai Chi form has basically, you know, learning it has allowed us to clear our minds without us even knowing it if you weren't aware. And then, yeah, many things become so much easier when we're able to clear our minds. So how do we do this? So I am going to be getting very specific as far as the fundamentals of Tai Chi movement and body posture and things like that. You know, if you're just beginning, you know, it's too much to think about all at one time. You know, if you're trying to learn the movements, don't worry. Learn the movements first, and you can fine tune, you know, everything as you progress. So I'm going to show as I go through the fundamentals and all of the things that are important in Tai Chi, I'm going to basically relate it to two well-known movements. So I'm going to use these movements to show what it is that I'm trying to explain. The first one is called cloud hands. And if you have any history in Tai Chi, you probably recognize this movement. It is done in many different styles. And it's basically getting coordination between two different limbs, staying relaxed in our posture. And this move is a continuous. So it really has no ending and no beginning aside from where you want it. And this movement, surprisingly, holds many characteristics that I want to focus. The other one is a movement called rush knee. Same thing. You'll see it in so many different styles. Just want to make sure that I'm still working right here. Okay. So rush knee is a movement that does have a beginning in it. So to look at it from the front, it's a rush, so a block and a push. And to look at it from the side, the block and so there's a story of a Taiji master that, when we first begin learning Tai Chi, these are drills that we will do 1,000 times. Whenever I start class, or many people start class, we do these postures again and again and again. Because like I said, they embody so many of the techniques that we want to maintain. So the story of the master is, after years and years of practice teaching, knows many of different styles. Yet, his house on the hillside, there is one path between the rice paddies that is packed like stone. It is a dirt pathway, but it is solid. And it's because that's all he does, is practices rush knee. So we begin by learning this. We go through our practices, we learn more techniques and more movements. But eventually you can come back to this and do all of the factors and all of the important aspects of Tai Chi in really any move that you do. There are 7 aspects of good Tai Chi of Tai Chi practice that I want to go over. So number 1 is flexibility. So there's a couple different types of flexibility. Obviously, stretching, right? Stretching is very important. It allows us, I don't think I need to do, but to be able to go through movements without having to tense and tighten. It gives us, good flexibility. Not only that, I think one of the things that I've had to focus on in my past, I've had many injuries in my past, but mobility, I think, is something that can be ignored as well. I think you can see my feet, but whenever I start practice, I rotate my ankles, I circle my knees, I circle my hips, I circle my shoulders, I circle my neck, and even to the point where I circle my spine. And this honestly keeps all of the joints, everything hydrated, keeps all the sinews and the soft tissues nice and slippery, so to say, the way that they're supposed to be. So number 2 would be solid foundation. So I think that pretty much any practitioner or any teacher in Tai Chi focuses very heavily on foundation, right? A 200-foot tall building is built from the ground. If you don't have a foundation, then you cannot go very high. A 200-foot tall tree has roots that grow very deep. So focusing on footwork and having a solid foundation, having centeredness allows us to be able to raise ourselves and our movements to a higher level. So when we stand, just, if you're waiting in line, a lot of times, we'll tilt to one side, our hips will tilt, we'll be leaning. So many times I find myself on the balls of my feet for no reason. I'm like, I do this all the time in class. Why am I not centered? And, having locked knees is definitely not a good thing. Horses and elephants are able to lock their knees because the way they're built. We are not built that way. So trying not to lean in any one direction, keeping the hips straight, all very, very important aspects. There's a meditation process just called Xuan Ju, which is standing meditation. Some call it standing like a tree meditation or standing post, standing stake. And it's basically you just getting into your stance and staying and maintaining your centeredness. And when I say stance, what am I talking? Well, like this, my knees are not too straight. I am sunk down. It's almost as if I have my crown of my is connected to the ceiling by a rope, and I'm just hanging. And when you do this, you can feel, if you can find the body structure where the skeleton kind of gets into a position where so many different muscles in your body, your spine elongates, a lot of the muscles we hold tension in the lower back and in glutes, everything. You get to a point where all of that can work. And in the standing post or the standing tree posture, when we do this for an extended period of time, you really have to allow your body to relax, or else all of your muscles are tight and start becoming fatigued. So if you're able to relax while you're in this, then you maintain a structure, stability of the posture. And that brings about something called sung. It's not a Chinese word that has a very good translation into English, but it basically means relaxation with structure. So we are able to relax to the point where energy can flow, blood can flow, but we still have structure, right? A lot of that is between the fascia, the tendons, and the ligaments. And with a relaxed body, we're able to move faster and react faster. So in cloud hands, When we get further into cloud hands, we begin to step side to side. And one of the great things about that is, like I said, you can break these movements down to focus on all of these particular elements. So solid foundation, one of like I said, is centeredness. So before I go to make a step, I have to put all of my weight into one foot. I have to sink down into one foot so that when I lift my other leg, my body doesn't shift. So often we will lift our leg and lean, right, to lift our leg. When you see this, when you can bring this into your daily life, so often we are falling in the direction that we are traveling. So it's, you know, I'm at the stove cooking a meal and it's like, oh, I need to go to the refrigerator. You know, I'm stepping over my foot and I'm falling in the direction that I want to go. I'm leading in that direction before I am ready to take that step. When if we were centered and able to bring the Tai Chi into our daily lives, we can just turn and move. That way I'm not falling on my foot, less stress on my body. It's so much easier, you know, and when you start doing that by muscle memory without even thinking about it, it just makes things more effortless, seeming to just move around without having to catch yourself. So the next aspect that I believe is, you know, truly important is movement coordination, right? So that is something in Tai Chi that is of very, very high importance. Basically, when one part of the body moves, all parts of the body. So, and then when one part stops, everything stops. So if we take this into brush knee, like I said, brush knee has a beginning and an ending. I'm turning my waist as my hands move. I'm stepping, turning my waist as I come. My hips, my leg, everything is coming. And then I'm going again, moving, and then stop. Often, you know, you'll see, you know, step, you know, the weight shifting, the hand movements. We don't want to shift our weight and then finish our movements. That is one aspect that gives Tai Chi its structure, gives us its power, right? So if we try to push something like this, we're moving our hands, we're moving our arms alone. If we try to push something like this, I'm able to use the power of my legs and the power of my waist to get the force out. That's another thing that's said in Tai Chi is the power is generated from the legs. It is directed by the hips and manifested in the arms. And that's another thing. If you can do that in the daily life, you'll notice that things are not don't take as much effort as they do sometimes. Like I said, just moving something or picking something up off the ground. When we bend over and lean over as you work in a industrial environment or anything like that, they have safety videos and stuff like that that shows you how to pick up a heavy box, right? We don't want to lean over like this. We don't want to do this. We don't want to, often lean over like that. We want to be able to squat without our knees moving, with our back fairly straight, to pick up and continue moving. So all of these things together, letting the body move as one, is a very, very important aspect to keep ourselves healthy and for good Tai Chi practice. Number 5, degree of posture. And so I think that's, again, goes into our daily life as well. So when I do brush knee, when I stop, I still have good posture. If I'm out here, I am overextended. If I'm here, I am collapsed, right? So say that there was, a force coming in. If I'm collapsed, then it's going to push me very, very easily. If I'm extended, I can be pulled very easily. I'm leaning. I don't have good structure. I don't have good posture. That puts extra strain on the joints, on the ligaments. If you're leaning, then you are tensing your muscles in places that don't need to be tensed. We end up compensating as we move. So maintaining that neutrality as far as having good structure and being able to, it gives you the ability to absorb and manifest and of course. And same kind of thing is when we step, many different styles of Tai Chi, like the Wudang style, especially when we go to step, as an advanced practitioner, you get very low to the ground. Well, that being said, I don't want to try to get too low to the ground too soon, because that means I have to overextend my body in order to get out. And I'm falling on my foot. And not only that, but if I have to pull back, I have to push off to come back. Very often in the beginning, if I'm teaching, I have to reiterate the fact that, yes, we should push ourselves, and try to get better, but not at the sacrifice of correct posture. So ideally, you should sink so that when you step, I also have the ability to bring it back. At the same time, when I sink, I'm not sinking like this. I'm keeping my knees where they should. I'm not going over my toe. I'm not letting it collapse. If anybody has suffered knee issues, I'm sure you're well aware. The knees are probably the worst designed joint in the body. For a joint that only is supposed to move in one direction, it can move in all directions, which is not very efficient. So I've had many, many knee injuries in the past. And that's one thing that you really have to be aware of at all times in life is, are my feet pointed in the same direction as my knees? If you're not aware of that, then, you know, knee problems will progress. They'll come about. A lot of times, one of the exercises that I will do in the beginning of class, and this goes into mobility and flexibility as well, is getting into our sunken stance, a neutral posture, knees bent, and then being able to turn the waist. So as I turn the waist, what we don't want to have happen is the knee to collapse or to the knee to push out. We want our knees to stay right where they are. And I often tell my students, look down. Watch your knees. Are they moving back and forth? Are they tilting in? So basically, this exercise is gaining flexibility and mobility in what in Tai Chi we call the qual, right? It's basically the tendons and ligaments in the groin area and the hips that need to be able to move freely. And that's how we're able to open our stances and keep our knees pointed in the same direction. Another one that you see a lot of is the eyes coordinating with the movement. So, like I said before, often Tai Chi is considered movement meditation. That is true in the fact that we are able to empty our minds. However, we should not become numb or unaware of what it is that we're doing in our surroundings. So very often you'll see this, or this. We want to have the intent, right? My eyes looking. When I do brush knee, I have intent gathering, and I'm looking at my target, at my end point, at my point of interest. That also helps us with the body turning, because that is a big part of efficient Tai Chi. If your body isn't turning, then, like I said, you don't have that ability to manifest the strength, the energy, the power that you have. So by looking, it allows you to better do that. On that subject, my hands, there's rarely ever a point in the Tai Chi form where I cannot see both hands in my peripheral vision. So if you see here, my hands are moving from side to side. However, if I stop, you'll see that my hand right off of my left hip, still off of my, the side. I'm not over here. I'm not extended. I'm not going backwards. When I do brush knee, my hand isn't, completely behind me. When we do brush knee, my hand is, again, right off of my head. So, in all reality, if I keep my hips pointing straight, and I do cloud hands. It's very difficult for me to not do that, but my hands are staying very close in this square in front of my body. So even another posture in the Tai Chi form is single whip. So yes, I'm looking this way. However, if I straighten out my head or my eyes with the direction of my waist, I can still see both of my hands in my grip. You know, this isn't back here, up here. I can still see them. Same thing. This is another one called white crane. I can still see both of my hands. I'm not back here. I'm not up here. I can still see my blocking hand. It's not back here. You know, I want both hands to be active. And that's often something that you'll see very commonly. And if you're beginning to practice, you want to make sure that you have intent on both of your hands at all times. So yes, one hand is pushing, but that doesn't mean that this hand is not just as important. So both hands should be active, have intent and energy as they go through their motions. So, like I said, using the eyes to go from where we are to where we are going is very, very important. And number 7, lastly, is martial intent, right? So Taijiquan is a martial art. The word Chuan means fist, so Taiji fist. So having martial intent doesn't mean that, you know, you need to always think about an enemy or an opponent. Yes, it's defend and attack, gather and manifest, but it's also yin and yang. It gives you the intent of, it gives the perspective of making it happen, right? Giving 100% into what it is that you're doing. Get it done without question. So it's, you know, it adds onto the using the eyes aspect, where we are completely intent on what we are doing and where we are going. We are gathering and manifesting. We are inhaling. And that's part of bringing breathing into it. So in all of this, you'll notice that in every posture, there's yin and yang. There's always a hand that's dropping, a hand that's coming up, or an inhale, an exhale, a shift of weight back, shift of weight forward, down, up, push, block, all yin and yang. That's where you find balance. It's interplay between yin and yang. And that goes into all forms of life, into Daoist philosophy. So in Daoist philosophy, there is something called the 3 treasures, which is Jing, Qi, and Shen. So it's commonly used in internal alchemy, but it can also be related to the Tai Chi practice as well, where Jing is translated as physical essence, right? What we are born with, the energy that we have inside of us. So correct posture and relaxation and all of that gives us good Jing. By being relaxed, it allows our blood and our qi to flow more easily. If we are tense, then the resistance of the flow of energy goes up. Our muscles are absorbing more energy, they're using more energy, and the qi, the energy, the blood, the oxygen, everything cannot flow as easily as it would. And then the eyes, martial intent, shen, is called spirit, right? So we embrace the Jing to raise the qi, to nourish the spirit. So having martial intent and using the eyes allows us to have strong spirit. So the three treasures. So if there's anybody who wants to join along, just give a quick explanation of these movements. So you've seen me do them a little bit now with cloud hands. Basically, I always like starting right at the side because it's a good place for everyone to begin, in that it's fairly easy to explain. So I have the hand that is back and the hand that is forward. The hand that is behind is facing down. The hand that is in front is facing up. They come down, left hand goes down, or depending on how the camera's working here, one hand goes down, one hand comes up. As I turn my waist and come back across center, the top hand turns. It's like I'm waving. And then my waist turns to the other side. Again, this is, my hands are still right off my head. And then this hand drops, the other hand comes up. And then I cross over my center line again. And as I cross over my center line, the hand and the hand turn. So while I'm doing this, standing where I'm at, without moving, I don't want to shift my weight, right? I don't want to tilt my hips. All I want to do is turn my weights. Not only that, but whenever we practice, I always say, okay, everybody stop. Find your center. And it's like, oh yeah, wow, look at all the muscles that I was holding on to when I didn't need to. Because as we do this, you'll find that tension begins to rise without you even knowing it. All of a sudden our legs straighten out and we're not seated anymore. So our knees want to remain bent at all times. Our spine should be elongated. We should be centered. So often we are leaning back, we're leaning forward. So feel your feet. If you feel too much pressure on the ball of your foot, you should shift back. If you have a mirror, a standing mirror in your house, get into your seated stance in front of the mirror and look. For a very long time, I thought that I had my centered posture perfect. And I finally put up a mirror and found that I was leaning back like crazy and had to relearn and get rid of that habit. So as I said, one hand drops, one hand comes up. As I cross the center line, I'm not really moving my hands very much or my arms. I'm turning my waist. This hand rushes, this hand turns. Again, I want to have intent on both hands. So as I see the top hand turning, I'm not forgetting about my lower hand. I have intent in both hands. In the same way, I don't want to collapse, right? My elbows are not touching my body. I'm not collapsing my elbows. I'm staying full, right? It's as if I have this big yoga ball. A lot of times I'll use that analogy. It's like I'm holding this big yoga ball between my elbows. It creates a fullness. It creates a barrier. It creates an energy field. If you're collapsed like this, then you're holding tension. But to do this gives us that structure that we were talking about. Allows relaxation. Allows the chi to flow. So if we bring in these sidestepping movements, again, when my hands cross, I want to be seated so heavily and so centered on this foot that my weight is sinking down into, that when I lift this foot, my body does not move. I step out with the heel, moving past the center line. When I come past the center line, I'm weighted 50-50. As I begin to turn, my weight shifts. And then as my hands pass, the foot lifts 50-50. Step 50-50. Sunk, centered. Step. Sink, centered. Step. So as I said, this is a lot of stuff to think about all at the same time, as far as turning the waist, being completely centered. When first starting out, try to get the movements down first, and then break it down. And now questioning. I'll try to do this in a way that everybody can see without stepping back too much. So, bow stance is like this. We've got about 70% or 60% weight on the front and about 30 to 40 on the rear. Going forward, you'll see that I still have plenty of space between my feet. Right? I still have at least shoulder distance between my feet. And so that's one thing that is always a point, a big topic, is that when we step, even though we are going forward, I'm not stepping forward, or else I'm walking on a tight, right? And I have very, very little balance. I am stepping out, and then my foot is landing forward. My hips are now facing forward, and I have a good distance between my feet. So when we first start out, you want to block. As I block, my foot is turning, my hips are turning, my shoulders are turning. Left, or one hand comes up, the other hand comes down. So I'm set. I'm sinking, I'm set. I have all of my weight on one foot. That way I step out without my body moving. As I shift my weight, my hips, my shoulders, my hand, I'll come back to center. I'll come back to facing. I open, I block, I close, push. Open, block, step, push. Open, block, step out, push. And it can get pretty involved. One of the tough parts is creating the energy of, you know, being able to direct the energy with, or the force with your hips. And so from posture, before I step, I want to pivot out so that when I push, to close this, which pushes my hip forward. And a lot of times, one of the things that I have been trying to reiterate is that when we step, instead of thinking about shifting your weight forward and then pulling this foot back in, don't think about shifting the weight. Just push your hip, your knee, and your foot back forward, and your weight shifts automatically. So I know that all of those things combined can be somewhat complicated. You know, keeping all of this in the back of you is great. And you know, if you want to continue doing brush knee, there's many different places that you can go to see brush knee if you forget exactly what I'm doing, what I am talking about here. And then watch the video again if you'd like. So through practice, we gain a muscle memory. Our posture, our movement, manifestation of force, it provides a confidence in our body movements. This allows us to quiet our mind. When we gain this muscle memory, we're able to carry these aspects and these fundamentals into our daily life. A lot of times without you even knowing. You don't have to have your mind always saying, okay, I need to go get the milk. I want to sink, I want to pivot, now I'm facing. If you practice through diligent practice, you get to the point where you don't have to. You don't have to worry about your body. We trust our body. It's more relaxed. If the body is relaxed, the mind can relax. When we question ourselves, our possibility of success goes down. You'll see that a lot in different styles where they'll break bricks or, you know, breaking boards. That's not, you know, there is a lot of physical skill that comes with that, but it's not just physical, it's also mental. If they had any doubt that they could not break those boards, then they wouldn't be able to do it. It has to be 100% devotion. So we practice to remove unsureness, second guessing. If we're able to focus and clear our minds, we're able to feel our bodies. Not only that, but gives us a higher awareness of our environment. It raises our senses. They always say that if someone has to suffer going blind, usually their hearing will increase. Well, if we quiet our mind, then all of our senses become more, they have a higher ability to make us more aware of everything and how we interact with everything. And, you know, this is an aspect of feng shui. You know, when we enter a space, if we have a clear mind and we are feeling, we can feel if this space is cold and non-receiving, or if there's, you know, a dark energy, if there's, you know, something just doesn't quite feel right about that area. And then this window with the sunlight coming in, you know, this is very warm, obviously sunlight is warm, but I'm just saying, you know, a certain specific situation, you walk into a bar and you see a bunch of people talking and it's like, well, they seem very friendly, very, you know, welcoming. And you see over at the bar a bunch of, you know, people that just got out of work drinking, and you say, well, I can tell I'm going to let them do that. So amid the hustle and bustle, this of daily life, especially nowadays, makes us more efficient and successful with interacting with things, people, places, events, and different situations. When our mind is relaxed, our reaction time can get quicker. And if you believe in such things, seemingly coincidences and luck become more common. Whether you could see things before they happen, or it's based on reaction timing, or your awareness of the surroundings. That is definitely something that is a result of diligent practice and bringing it into your daily life. So to live a harmonious life, the Taoist practitioner works to find the balance between the mind and the body. Once that is achieved, we can find the balance between ourselves and nature. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josh. We're going to leave space if folks have any questions to drop in the chat about any of the movements, about some of the theory behind Taiji. Well, we'll leave about 5 minutes before we move on and let Josh completely off the hook. Josh, I really enjoyed you going through the principles of Taiji because it is really something that a lot of people practice for a long time without a lot of intention, and then they kind of get bored with it. And I think the type of person that really gets into Taiji is a little bit more detail oriented. It wants to kind of hold these things in their mind, wants to kind of continually be refining something like a master craftsman. So yeah, so great talk. Thank you. And maybe for the folks who, one last thing, Josh, before we go, maybe you could list off was it 8 principles, just so people have it in kind of like a very short time to review.
Yes. It was 7 different aspects. Sorry for the noises. That I feel are aspects for good Tai Chi practice. One is flexibility and mobility. Having a solid foundation and centeredness. Movement coordination. All parts of the body move at once, and all parts and moving at the same time. Body rotation. Having flexibility, being able to make a large step into another direction without me collapsing in. Being able to carry out the postures with the hands not extended but in front of the body. Movement coordination. I think I said that. The degree of posture, so I'm not stretching, I'm not over my center, I'm not collapsed. Eyes coordinating with the movement, and finally, martial intent.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. One question from the chat. We'll read a couple here. The first one is, do you always step out heel first?
Yes. I'm trying to think. There are a couple. I mean, it depends on what style that you're learning. Many styles will put the toe down, but in Wudang style, it is heel first. And I think that one of the things that really does is forces you to get your knee and your foot pointed in the same direction before you transfer your weight. Not only that, but it allows you to rotate on your foot as you begin to turn and go the direction that you want to go. If I step out with my toe, then to now, if I'm not stepping straight in that direction, I put my toe down, well, I can't shift my weight and turn at all. I can do that on my heel, but if you put your toe down and try to do that, it doesn't work very easy.
Awesome. Yeah, a simple and a more detailed answer at the same time. We also have a question. Do you find that you have to tailor your teaching to specific groups of students?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think when you teach, you really have to observe and be aware of, everybody has their own ways that they move their bodies, ways that they might compensate, whether it's, I think even if we don't have injuries from the past, everybody compensates. We all have one shoulder that's higher than the other. And so, yeah, you definitely have to take all of that into consideration. You know, if somebody has past training in, karate or, a hard martial art, that's another thing that you have to take into consideration when trying to teach them how to be fluid, slow, and soft. It's a different challenge for sure. And then, when you're teaching somebody who is older in age, one of my students was, over 70 years old, and you can't make those big steps from, one corner to the opposite when you're, that age. So focusing more on the shifting full centeredness on one foot and being able to balance, maybe not lifting a leg up, but just, being able to balance on that one foot and then adding in another movement. So in order to make that shift, we were having to add in a close shift and then an open. So yes, absolutely.
I think that's a wonderful example. I found a similar thing when I was teaching more senior age folks down here in Costa Rica, is that we had to focus really on just like that rooting, like that unlocking of the knees and staying at a particular height more, because they weren't going to go into a 90-degree horse stance. But within that, there's still an amount of like pushing of like, hey, you still can do this. You're not gonna lock knee your way through Taiji class in my class because you can't hold a 90-degree stance, and it's not gonna look like, a wushu competition, an international level competition. You're still gonna do the baseline, and I like the little steps that you might add to make it intentional instead of letting people kind of like pitter patter their way through. Because to me, that's that intentional stepping is one of the way that, especially in older populations, you actually are preventing falls, because you're actually like making sure every step is intentional, it's rooted, it's strong, as opposed to just kind of like putting your feet down wherever you want. Is much more like, that's not Taiji anymore. That's kind of just waving your hands and walking around. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. These postures were all designed in a way to carry momentum from one posture to the next. And so to be able to do that in the correct way while maintaining correct structure and not putting too much stress on the joints, you definitely have to have that foundation, that rootedness, that centeredness. And so in order to do that, yeah, you can't just step here and push there. You can't tilt your hips. You can't, be sunk and then straighten out. You definitely have to, yeah, you have to work. You have to, like you said, not pitter patter your way through it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Josh.